You know, the name of this committee today is Failures and Incompetencies. So let's talk about the big Knish, right? The chairman's failed impeachment. Mr. Chairman, the speaker is watching. You could call for impeachment right now. No? Okay.
As we speak, the Republican-led House Oversight Committee is holding a hearing on the supposed incompetence of the Biden administration, which is ironic given that the House Republican majority is literally historically incompetent. But the good news is that this gives us an opportunity for Democratic superstar Jared Moskowitz to repeatedly publicly humiliate the Republican chairman of the committee, James Comer, about his various failures. And we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. It's been a minute since we've checked in on the House Oversight Committee, right? Congress has basically been out of session for a while, and we've been focusing more on the 2024 election, the horse race. But it is important to remember that the James Comer-led House Oversight Committee is profoundly incompetent and unsuccessful. The major political initiative, of course, over the past 2 years has been to try to impeach President Biden, and that just exploded throughout the 2-year duration in one public humiliation after another. And then was just kind of summarily just like, ended with a whimper, if not a bang. Well, freshman Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz is a foil for James Comer. He loves to troll and mock and belittle Comer, which is good. It should be done. And so now that Congress is back in session, Moskowitz wasted no time doing just that. We have several clips we need to talk about, starting with this funny exchange here.
Mr. Chairman, I'll begin by pointing out that Hunter Biden is going to be sentenced on December 16th.
Hunter Biden's not the president.
And I bet you money
Hey,
he's going
Timmons, you need to take your medication and leave. Chair recognizes Mr. Timmons.
Mr. Chairman, you're several decades older than me. We know who's taking more medication.
So that was off screen. That was Jared Moskowitz trolling James Comer, asking, hey, guys, when are we scheduling the impeachment of President Biden, given that you spent 2 years on this and you've insisted that the president has committed impeachable offenses. Comer knows that Biden has not actually committed impeachable offenses. He knows he doesn't have the votes to bring an impeachment, and he knows even if he did, it would die an ugly death in the United States Senate. So it's just a political defeat for the Republicans that Moskowitz is rubbing in the Republicans' face. Now, the other Republican, the bald gentleman there who is about to speak, says, well, Hunter Biden is going to be sentenced in the next couple of days. And Moskowitz correctly points out, well, Hunter Biden is not the president of the United States. He's Joe Biden's son. President Biden is not morally, legally, or politically responsible for crimes that his adult son may have committed. So this is kind of a red herring. And again, I just love that exchange because Comer has a sense of humor. He tries to be funny, but Moskowitz is much funnier still. You need to take your medication and chill. Listen, you're a lot older than me. We know who's taken more medication. Moskowitz actually responded on Twitter and said, I took Claritin since I'm allergic to Comer. Now, let's get into some longer clips. This one here, since we're on the topic of impeachment, actually, let me bring up that one first because that one's a really, really, really good clip. The topic of impeachment is really one that should be emphasized a lot more because, again, this is the only political project the House Republicans have really been consistently dedicated towards. They, have been moving to impeach President Biden for 2 years. Then, of course, when he dropped out of the race and Vice President Harris became the presumptive Democratic nominee, even though they really didn't have any impeachable offenses on the president in the first place, then it was even politically less significant because Biden was no longer really the viable target. And again, Moskowitz is important. Or rather, Moskowitz importantly brings up these failures of the House Republican majority, even as they try to distance themselves from them.
But, the name of this committee today is Failures and Incompetencies. So let's talk about the big Knish, right? The chairman's failed impeachment. Let's remember, we misplaced an informant over a year ago, couldn't find him, didn't know where he went. Another informant was indicted for providing false information that came from Russian intelligence. We used a second informant who was turned out to be an indicted Chinese foreign agent. And to top it off, the chairman was like, who could we find to make it even better? Maybe we can get someone to testify from prison, which actually we did here on Zoom. Here is the chairman's 300-page book report on impeachment. He said in his release, "It is the strongest case for impeachment of a sitting president the House of Representatives has ever investigated." Wow, that sounds pretty serious. So I want the chairman to show the American people that we didn't just waste millions of taxpayer dollars to issue this book report. Mr. Chairman, the speaker is watching. You could call for impeachment right now, right? We got a little bit of time left before the election. I mean, just ask the speaker. You could ask the speaker right now, or talk to him. Like, when are we going to schedule impeachment? Or is this just concepts of impeachment? Right? No? Okay. Well,
love it. Folks, this is the ultimate exposure and humiliation of the MAGA Republican House majority, and just a damning indictment of their incompetence, their dysfunction, and their skewed priorities. They could have spent the last 2 years working in good faith with the Biden administration when and where they could. Obviously, I don't expect them to work with the Biden administration on everything, because they at least are supposed to have substantive policy disagreements, but there's not total separation. So work with the Biden administration where you can. They wouldn't do it. Instead, they have spent from the very beginning every effort to try to impeach the president. As Moskowitz points out, that 300-page summation, the summary of their investigation, says that not only did President Biden commit impeachable offenses, that he committed stronger impeachable offenses, that the case is stronger than any impeachment effort ever. The two against Donald Trump, the one attempt against President Clinton, the purported case against President Nixon, all of those things are weaker than what they have claimed exists against Biden. But they won't recommend an impeachment vote. Folks, that is how you know objectively that they're lying. They're full of shit, because if the truth is, they would bring it to a vote if they really believe on principle that Joe Biden has committed impeachable offenses of greater magnitude than any previous sitting president. Then they would have a moral duty to bring an impeachment effort against President Biden, even if they weren't sure that they had the votes. And by the way, why would their own caucus not support an impeachment effort? Why would they not have the votes? Like, they have the majority. In theory, if all the Republicans voted in favor of impeaching the president, they could do it. The fact that so many Republicans, more than a dozen Republicans at least, and probably even more than that, won't vote for it suggests that it's in fact not the strongest impeachment case. So they lied, and they did waste not only the American people's time, but the American people's dollars, millions of dollars. This is what I mean when I say that the MAGA Republican Party is objectively inferior with respect to governing. It's not a matter of opinion. Democrats, for all their faults, are the better governing party. They just are, which is why voters need to remember that when they go to the ballot box in November. And we have an obligation to make that clear to them. A couple of other good clips from Jared Moskowitz here, making fun of MAGA Republicans and Donald Trump.
But, Project 2025 wants to get rid of NOAA, wants to get rid of the National Weather Service. The people that tell you the weather and help us prepare for hurricanes. So I say that as a former director of emergency management for the state of Florida, for a Republican governor, actually, who responded to hurricanes. Maybe once we get rid of it, if Project 2025 were to succeed, if Trump were to win, maybe we'll just do it with a magic 8-ball, or maybe with a Ouija board, or maybe we'll do hurricane cones like President Trump did, right? Where he just, circled in another state that wasn't in the cone. So maybe what we'll do is we'll do hurricane predictions, like maybe it'll go to Mississippi, maybe it'll go to North Carolina, or maybe it'll go to all three. Oh, look, I made a smiley face. Maybe that's how we'll do the weather. I could see it right now, right? Trump would come out and say, it's going to be raining cats and dogs today. Please don't eat them.
That's hilarious. Again, he's so good at what he does. Of course, he's making a reference to the ridiculous and highly offensive conspiracy theory that Donald Trump peddled about Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, saying that they were eating the cats and the dogs, even though those conspiracy theories have been debunked. The claims were never substantiated in the first place, and has put people's lives in jeopardy as a consequence. Donald Trump refuses to disavow any of it. He and his MAGA Republicans, including J.D. Vance, continue to signal boost these conspiracy theories. So yeah, it's good that Moskowitz is roasting Trump and these MAGA Republicans for these ridiculous falsehoods. And on that subject, we're going to play one last clip in which Moskowitz points out the Republicans' bad faith, their dishonesty, and their harmful rhetoric with respect to these Haitian migrants.
Yes. I mean, literally 2 weeks ago, right, all we heard was about what the Haitian people were doing in Springfield. But no, the chairman wanted to top that. He literally brought a witness who proffered in this committee that the Haitian people would have been better off had they stayed in slavery for several more decades. Mr. Chairman, I want to spare you the embarrassment. You should strike his words from the record. No, you stand by his comment that the Haitian people would have been better off in slavery for 30 more years? Or should we strike that from the record? I just want to spare you that embarrassment. Okay, so the chairman—
All right, your time's expired.
What a loser. James Comer is a loser. These MAGA Republican politicians are losers. They really are. And they traffic in the most toxic, dangerous, racist, bigoted rhetoric imaginable. Folks, I'm actually glad Congress is back in session. I'll tell you why. Because this Republican majority has made it the least productive iteration of Congress in recorded history. And I should say, to those saying, well, that's a consequence of divided government. If it were the Democrats in charge of the House of Representatives and Republicans in charge of the White House and the Senate, it would be the same thing, except it wasn't. When Nancy Pelosi was running the House and Donald Trump was in the White House, we had divided government, and Congress was still substantially more productive than this version. I'm sorry, even in divided government, Democrats are just better at governing and working in good faith with even Trump Republicans than Trump Republicans are with Democrats. It's just a fact. And I'm glad Congress is back in session because their incompetence, their maliciousness needs to be on full display to the American people as the election approaches. And freshman Democrats like Congressman Moskowitz, who I interviewed at the DNC, they go a long way towards highlighting that for the American people. Great stuff. And in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.